3, 1, and we're live. Okay, people, we have another podcast on Actflix today, and we have our guest is Jad, and is here, and we're going to spend roughly an hour talking about the amazing stuff that guy has been putting out there. Yeah. You did a lot of stuff, and I did my research. So let me introduce you, Jad. So Jad is a software engineer, and he's a speaker. Like, he speaks all over the world. If you go on his website, there is a map of all the places in the world he's been. Like literally every single continent, but maybe Africa not.
Was remote.
It was a remote in Kenya or Nigeria, something like that. So Australia is missing. That area is missing, right? You haven't.
No.
Okay. So he's been
Latin America is missing.
Latin America is also missing. Yeah. Asia is already
Asia.
there.
Yeah. Visa stuff.
Okay. So he's been all over the world, and he's a Google developer expert. For those who don't know, it's Google developer expert on like
web
technologies, and he's also Microsoft MVP. Well, do you get to sleep sometime? like just say no, and then I understand now better. and it's not over. You're the founder of Learn JavaScript Online. And we probably tell us more about the goal behind this tool. You're passionate about PWAs, like a lot.
Yeah.
It's like if you Google PWA, there is 50 to 70% that his name is next to it, right?
Were you logged in?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And let's. That's what I have. Do you want to add more or give us more information about you?
I have to say you did a really good research. So I'm mostly doing talks this year and focusing a lot on Learn JavaScript, also publishing a new course that teaches, one that teaches JavaScript is already online. Yeah. I'm also working on a React course.
Yeah.
Hopefully getting it ready by by Q1 2020, so that's just in a few months.
Yeah.
And
you mean Q1 March or Q1 January?
I think that's why they say Q1, because like nobody knows. But yeah, hoping to get a private beta very soon.
Yeah.
So maybe even December and January, and then so February. So that would be like half Q1.
Okay. So what is your mission? What are you doing of your life? Yeah, because whatever you've built so far, I can see like a trend. You build stuff, you teach, you build stuff, you keep teaching people. You were like a teacher at Luuk, and at the early age, I believe, when they were like starting in Amsterdam, and it wasn't that popular having all these coding school around. So you've been there. You've been among the pioneers. So what is your mission? How would you describe that?
I think that's hard to describe, but I can tell you what I understand of the things I like to do is that I don't like doing the same thing. So I like teaching, consulting, and learning, and then it's like a complete circle because you learn new stuff, you apply them, you teach them.
Yeah.
If I were just teaching all the time, I think I would get bored and the content would, like, my knowledge would become stale. And if I'm always consulting, I'm just only focusing on making profit from companies, and I don't think that's like just a nice long-term goal. So just combining these three is a really nice mixture.
Okay.
So I think we can make it that circle. Learn, apply, consult. Yeah.
Learn, apply, consult. How can we fit that into learn, share, and inspire? Something pretty close there. There is a learning part in there. So yeah. So the way you put it to me, it tells me a story of someone that has a passion and want to share that passion and keep improving and then share that passion with other people. But where did you, as a human being, where did you acquire those skills? How did you get into computer science? Is it something you always like to do? Is it how can you? What's the story there?
It's funny because it all started with a YouTube video back in, I don't remember the year. I was, I think, 13, 14, or maybe even 15.
Yeah.
And one of the recommendations was about, like on YouTube, was about hacking. And then, oh, this is very interesting. I'm going to click on it. I click on it. And then in 2 minutes, they teach you VB script, Visual Basic Script.
Yeah.
And you just open Notepad, write one line of code. You get an icon on the desktop, you click on it, and you get a message box.
Yeah.
This was hacking, of course. It's of course not hacking. But
that was a good way to get into, to get you hooked. Like,
exactly.
Because you get an immediate result, and then you're like, oh, I can do that.
Exactly. I thought, like, there is a huge word hidden beneath this computer that I had no idea existed, because I never really thought how these things were built. And from that, I learned Visual Basic 6. I don't think I can write the line of code of that. And then from there, I think I started with the typical HTML, CSS, probably JavaScript, like the old version of JavaScript, and PHP, MySQL, like the whole LAMP stack, but on Windows. It wasn't LAMP back then. And this is how I got interested in it. So it's been around 10 years, but I have to say the first 4 or 5 years were really slow. And learning, and I wasn't learning properly at all. I actually always give this example. I was so happy with what I knew, which was so wrong, because I didn't know about the for loops. So then if I had to write a code for an array, I would literally copy the code 10 times and change the index.
People, see, you that's amazing.
But I have to say, of course, 10 years ago, it was hard to find things on the internet.
Yeah.
But I also think it was a problem with me trying to... I'm really happy with what I know. I think I know a lot. I shouldn't learn more, and that was obviously very wrong. So I think I wasted 2-3 years there.
Okay, but you're doing well, and obviously you bounce back, and you were able to see today, like, oh, I could have done that differently. So let me take you like 10 years like forward, and then what do you do today? Like the process you're using today to learn, to grow, do you have a way to kind of improve it? Or like then you don't wake up 5 years later and then you're like, oh, that thing, I was doing it wrong.
So that's a great question. And I think I can even answer it for programming and also for learning languages, because now I'm learning Dutch. So maybe we talk about it in a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. So first, I try to watch a lot of conferences, and this can be completely for free. So you don't have to travel for a conference, just watch them online.
Yeah.
So the things that I'm interested in are Chrome Dev Summit, Perf Now, happening right now in the Netherlands.
In Amsterdam, yeah.
JSConf, I don't know, other conferences around performance, JavaScript, because then you know what the industry is interested about and you hear from experts. So I watch the videos that I'm interested in. And I always try to apply as soon as possible, because that's something I notice from courses, and I've also heard it from my students. You watch a video and you think you get it until you try to apply it, and like, this doesn't work. And it still happens to me as well. So if I have to speak about a certain technology, I always have to make a demo, try it on my phone. It will never work from the first 10 times. And then only when it works, you understand. So also speaking at conferences is quite a good experience to learn faster, because I would never go up on stage and talk about something I've never done. I don't think anyone would do it. So you're really forcing yourself to learn like faster. There's also writing article, but I'm just not a huge fan of writing. I'm really slow at it.
Yeah, we're two of us. Yeah,
that's why I'm doing podcasts.
Yeah, got that. Yeah, indeed. I can relate to whatever you said there, and especially the video part. Yeah. Like you watch a video and then you're like, okay, that works like that. Then you're in the situation, you're like, how was that? What was the thing again? And I understand that. And I actually do exactly what you do. I remember somewhere around 2008-9, I was doing this C#.NET stuff. And there weren't not much like content online as you mentioned, but one of the thing that was there, which is called today Pluralsight.
Yeah.
They had these video cast, and then someone will do a demo, and then I'm like if the demo is like an hour, I will spend 5 hours on it. Like just like triple, completely 5 times the amount of time the video took, until I'm like, okay, now I know it. So that's a good way. I think that's a good way for people learning.
Yeah.
To improve their.
And for languages, flashcards are super important.
You mean like for like now you're learning Dutch?
Yeah, like for Dutch. So you hear the word. I have it on my phone. You hear a word in English, like let's come up with something.
Wake up.
Yeah, I just don't want to test my Dutch
skills. I was testing your Dutch skills right now. Lekker.
So let's say not bad. And then you get it in English, not bad. And then before you click on it, you have to say it in Dutch, niet slecht.
Niet slecht, yeah.
And then when you click on it, you hear it in Dutch. And then when you do it 3-4 times for 2-3 days, like you just learn an insane amount of... And this is the strategy I'm using for my students on Learn JavaScript. So same thing without the audio, of course. You get a question and you get 3 answers and you have to choose the right one. Because I noticed this is how I learned Dutch. Maybe that would help people in JavaScript. And surprisingly, it worked. Like people love the flashcards.
So can you tell us more about Learn JavaScript Online then?
Yeah, sure. It started as a side project. Sorry. I was already doing consulting and teaching, and I thought, I'm always getting the question, is there a really good modern resource for JavaScript? And the reason behind it is when ES 2015 was published, most of the old things became a little bit outdated, especially Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
You go there and you have a simple question, how can I split a string into multiple characters? And you have all of these complicated answers just because people were answering them for IE 6, IE 8, and with ES5. So then things became way more simplified. So I could never give an answer to my students. I'm like, you should take this course, and then there's a gap, and then there's this course, and then there's a gap. So I thought about doing something about it. And in 3 months, I made an interactive platform. The UI is quite similar to Codecademy, as in there's a text editor. I'm not really sure if we do things separately. To be honest, I didn't even go and like copy it. But the UX of it, people just absolutely love it because it's very slick and very fast. So you go on the website, you learn a short lesson, and then you go to a challenge. So immediately you learn something, you have to apply it.
Yeah.
And when you apply it, you have TDD, so test-driven development.
Yeah.
Not really. The tests were written for you, but you have the tests and you have to pass them.
Yeah.
So you write something, you hit Command S or Command Enter, and then the code immediately runs on your browser. It doesn't really have to travel all the way and then come back. So it gives you quick feedback.
Nice.
And you get the error message directly the way the browser would tell it to you. And around that, there's a lot of learning experiences like getting a hint, previewing your notes. So while you're reading a lesson, it's just like learning on pen and paper. You can highlight the text and save it to your notes. And there's a bit more I can't remember.
That's a fun project to work on.
Yeah. So the first MVP was in 3 months, and I launched it. I was really afraid 5 people would buy it. This was my worst nightmare, because if 5 people would buy it, it means I have to continue working on it just for 5 people.
Oh wow! But so why 5?
5 or like 1 to 10. So like a small number. If nobody bought it, then I know I can drop the project. But if 10 people bought it, I would probably have to... I thought maybe I'll just refund them and not continue the full thing.
Okay.
But when I launched it, it was on Hacker News. I submitted it on Hacker News, and it went on the homepage, and had around 20,000 visitors the first day.
Wow.
Which was quite nice. And then someone...
That's a lot of pressure right away, like instantly,
and then someone bought it, and I was like, okay, it's starting now. Either 5 more people will buy it and the whole thing just stops, or that's going to be what I'm going to be working on for the next few months. And it's been going really well so far, and people are like pressuring me into launching the next course. So hopefully that's going to be soon.
So how do you manage then your time between speaking, teaching, building your own platform, consulting your customer. Because I have just to remind everyone that it's only 24 hours a day.
I do sleep 8 of them. I never miss on sleep.
Like 8 of them are already gone. Okay, now you're making it 16.
But I do have to mention something that also helps in learning as well. And it's one of the reasons why I don't work at companies, because at a company you're going there from 9 to 6, and most of the times you have a task, you have to work on it the entire time.
Yeah.
I like breaking up my tasks across several days. I think all developers know that when you work on something and it doesn't work, just set it aside, sleep on it, and the next day you're going to have the answer.
Yeah.
So I do juggle a lot between the tasks. So every day I'm working, say, 2 hours on a course. If I have a talk, 30 minutes on a talk, and then 1 hour on something. In total, I think it's going to be 6 to 7 hours of work, like not insane amount of hours.
Okay. So it's just a matter of organizing your work in...
Everything's on Trello.
Wow. That's organization as a developer.
It's because, or else you forget. So the thing is, I treat my brain as it will forget things, so let me just write everything.
Yeah.
And like some friends tell me, you're just writing literally everything. It's like, yeah, I might forget.
Did you read things like
Get Things Done?
Getting Things Done.
I think I've read it as a short ebook a few years ago, but that was.
Was it something that inspired you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm now reading an audiobook, A Company of One. And I can totally relate to it because I'm not a huge fan of investors and VCs and growing a company and then hiring people. So that's really nice to see that someone else thinks the same.
Just takes away the headaches of like managing a company and that I can understand. I had Uri. You know Uri? From Goldenstein from... you used to work at Meteor and on GraphQL. It's part of the guild.
Yeah, I think...
like long hairs like that, and he does GraphQL. He's the one organizing GraphQL Amsterdam. And we were talking about, obviously, this aspect of you guys are doing great stuff out there, and how do you manage your time? And me, I end up going with the company, like having more people. But then... at some point, I also look at it like, like if you're alone, you can. There is a company of one. I read the book. It's like you're building something where you're the solo player, obviously, but it takes away a lot of issues that are related to that comes with building a company with a lot of people.
So there's also another benefit of I think of a company of one is that information is being processed by one person. That sounds wrong. But what I want to say is when you're doing customer support, you really know what your customers are asking for. So the customer support is something I don't think I'll ever outsource because I want to know what my customers think about the product.
Yeah.
So hiring someone to just answer customer support sounds wrong because these people are complaining about things or giving you direct or indirect feedback. And when you hire someone, it's like you're shutting down, you're like muting this customer feedback. So that's what I also like about companies of one.
Interesting.
Of course, you can manage it to scale. Like if a lot of people are asking the same question, you can integrate it as part of the UI. You can have it as a frequently asked question. But just outsourcing this or hiring someone, I think it's most of the times, of course.
So, but how do you deal with the skills that you don't have and you need them to build your company?
So there's the design that's freelancing for freelancers. The UX part is mostly done by me as well. I'm not really a UX designer, but I always talk about technical UX. Mm-hmm. So when you use the product and hear the feedback from the customer, so it's actually being shaped by customers. A lot of the features were influenced by what customers are saying, like, this is not working. It's really annoying to have to go back to the lesson every time. And then this would allow them now to preview the previous lesson on the same page, for example.
Okay. Interesting. So How about marketing and stuff like
yeah.
that? Yeah.
It's a very good question. So I think what's making it easier now is that the audience is developers, and then most developers are not really fond of ads. So it doesn't make sense to just hire someone to put Google ads or Facebook ads.
Yeah, usually, yeah. Actually, I'm not even referring to ads. This is basically the main thing that when I say marketing is, obviously being visible.
Yeah. So now it's all mostly organic SEO.
Okay.
If you search learn JavaScript, it's gonna be there will be 6 ads, and then if you scroll, it's gonna be one of the top 5 or top 6. That obviously, of course, depends on a lot of things, language, your history. But if you try it on google.com/NCR, no country redirect, it's gonna be one of the top 5 or 6. And same, what's interesting for Yandex, the Russian search engine, it's one of the top 4, and Baidu one of the top 4 as well.
Nice.
So now all of the marketing is organic. But I am considering sponsoring a podcast. Oh, wait, we're on a podcast.
Well, Zara will be happy to talk with you. Yeah. Interesting. So there are 2 things you mentioned. One is technical UX. I want to touch on that, but before we go there, there is obviously something you do, and you probably don't realize it, or you do, but it's about branding for developers. Like, you have a brand. Like, do you build that on purpose, or is it just like you've been doing your thing and then it just happened to be there? Well, what is the...
Yeah, it's definitely on purpose. And I think this is where, if I would think who inspired me on this is mostly Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah. He's well known on this thing.
Hey, Gary. All good?
But no, this was part of a strategy, and it's really a long-term strategy. So I don't expect it to be like fully beneficial until maybe 5 or 10 years in the future. It takes a lot of time, so that's always a thing on the side. But it helps a lot because when people, that's also something I kind of realized before. How do you know that someone is an expert at a certain technology? It's just when you see their name associated with a certain topic several times across several places, you start realizing, wow, this person is everywhere. They must be experts. Yeah. And this is just an assumption. It doesn't really have to be true, but this is how people think. Yeah.
So that's why when you type PWA on Google, you're like, there's Jad next to it. Can I talk to that guy?
Could be.
Yeah. Because I had these... I think over the years I was able to build a brand, but I wasn't aware of like I'm doing it, and then I saw people in the community that were very visible. They were quite visible, and I spoke with them in private, and they would tell me like, yeah, I'm good at what I do, but no one will never know it if I stay in my my office, or I don't share whatever I know, and that actually inspired me over the years, and helped me build whatever I built. So it's probably an advice for people out there, like, go ahead, give those talks, share those knowledge, help other people grow. It will just benefit you.
And sometimes the companies you work with will help you to do that if you're not self-employed, but sometimes they will try and hinder your process. Like, why does this talk say your name all over the first title, not our company name? And I had this conversation with the previous companies I was working on. Well, it has my name because first, I'm not like, you're not sponsoring my visit. Second, sorry, it's content I learned outside the company. But if your company supports it, then like it's a great opportunity to just have your name there and the company's name maybe, and then like just not having to worry about you doing it yourself.
Okay.
But if you're also self-employed, I think it comes natural to have your personal brand, because most, at least at WeWork, on the ground floor, most people who are self-employed, their company name is just their full name.
Their full name, yeah. Yeah, interesting. What is your company name?
My full name.
That was an easy one. So you mentioned technical UX. Technical UX, and you're a software engineer.
So I think I haven't really talked publicly about this with anyone yet, but it's something I notice when building products. You have a UX designer, which are really good, like people really good at UX, and then you have developers who are implementing like the user interface elements, the pages, and then they get comments from the UX designer. But I think there's a gap in between these two, which is you need someone who knows the UX a lot, but is also fluent in JavaScript and performance and all of these things to bridge the gap.
Okay.
Because the UX designer envisions something, and then the developer is just focusing on the end result, and then you really have a gap. So I can give you an example. You click on a button. Let's say you have like the tabs at the bottom, just like most native apps have. You click on one of the buttons, and then maybe the developer doesn't focus a lot on performance or a lot of things I'll mention in a bit. And then the experience is not exactly the same the way the UX designer wants it, because the developer is focusing more on functional things. Yeah, if you click on the button, it opens a second page. The UX designer is thinking more, when we click on this second page, we're going to have a ripple effect, for example, or an active state.
Yeah.
It has to show up in less than 30 milliseconds because it needs to be instant. And then you have, for example, this dot that moves from the first page to the second page, transitions, and then all of these small little details. And I kind of gave a talk about this in at Frontiers in Tuchinski 2 months ago. So that would be interesting. It's called Secrets of Native-like PWAs, if anyone wants to watch it. It is about progressive web apps, but it just applies to any modern website.
Okay. So what I understood, or what I understand right now, it's this gap. You basically want to have that UX skills, and then developers, and then like someone in the middle that can basically fill in the gap.
Yeah.
But why do you want? Okay, you want that person to have this technical, like JavaScript knowledge, or like the technical skills to build whatever is on provided by the UX. Don't we have tools like Framer? You know Framer? Have you heard about
but
Framer?
Never used it. Yeah.
No, there are probably tools out there that gives, from the designer point of view, like capabilities to just do their design, make it beautiful, and then have already some code snippet. Then they can run the code, the design they did. They can just run it, but the behind the scene is actually JavaScript. It's literally JavaScript. They can see the JavaScript code. I believe many years ago it was CoffeeScript even as the language, CoffeeScript. And don't you think that will fix that issue? Or
I never really tried it, but I hope so.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times, I never really saw the code generated by Framer, but I assume there are some cases where you cannot really use it. And then, but of course, we're only talking where you're building things for mobile, because this is where the UX becomes more important. You have just small real estate. You have the users using your app with a thumb.
Yeah.
Like we expect them to use it maybe with 10 fingers, but they just use a thumb. And this is why we have the tab bar at the bottom.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
And we don't really have a screen to show now, but when I show an example about what I'm talking about, technical UX, I can show you web apps that have a tab bar at the bottom, but just use it. And it's so frustrating because you click on the page, on the second tab, and then you have to wait for a full page reload to go on the next page. And this really is not what the user is expecting.
Yeah.
But open like a native app, and then you click on the tab and you have this smooth transition.
Yeah.
And this is when it becomes...
The first time you mentioned that was when you were showing me JavaScript online, when you shipped like the mobile version. Is that where you really encountered that issue?
Well, it was mostly from the talk. And then, so the new mobile version is the result of the talk.
Okay. PWA. Secret of PWA.
Secrets of Native-like PWAs. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Secret of Native-like PWAs. So we're not gonna spoil anything there, but you want to tell us more about that? because you have a talk in January, like 17th of January.
Yeah.
But you also give a talk, I think, in a mobile era.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us more, like
So
a few
about-
secret there? We take secret here. we good. We can keep them.
So we're not recording now?
No, we're not recording. No.
Okay, cool. So since we're not recording, I already mentioned one of them, which is having the tab bar at the bottom for web apps, because this is a pattern users are used to on their native apps.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not saying every single website should have a tab bar, only when it makes sense. But the reason why the tab bar is at the bottom is because the user is using it with a thumb, and then it's you can reach it easily with your thumb, so like this. And then, this also falls part of the app shell model. And then in the app shell, if you open any app on your phone, even the camera app, they have an app shell, which is just a split of a second before the content loads. You have the app structure without any content, without any data. Yeah. And this is something, it's not really new, like we know it on the web. But what I was talking about is, why not take this to the next level? Why not build app shells that are similar to the way they are on native apps?
Okay.
So an example is, for example, the Twitter native app or the Philips Hue light. They have a tab bar, you click on a page, and then it slides from page to another page. Yeah. And that's something you rarely see on the internet, on the web, not the internet. Mm-hmm. And mostly because we didn't have the tools to make this animation. If you had to make it in JavaScript, it would be slow. Mm-hmm. But just last year, the web has evolved so much, and you can now do it in 2 lines of CSS with the CSS scroll snap. Oh, wow. So you can flick between screens.
What is the name of the property?
Scroll snap. You have to set the scroll snap type on the parent. For example, X on the X-axis mandatory. And then on the children, you say scroll snap align, start or center, and that's enough.
Okay.
If I show you a demo, does it show up?
Yeah. You can. We can see we can quickly check on the if you what is it there. See. So yeah, because like most of people will just have like a responsive version of their website, but not really like a mobile version.
Exactly, because sometimes responsive is not enough, and this was, we're spoiling too much. Yeah. This was the end of the talk that I previously had the mobile version of this website by just stacking things under each other, because this is how we learned to make things responsive, which is true. It is responsive, but maybe that's not what the user expects. But instead, you can make this kind of, I don't know if you can see this experience where you can flick between pages and then click on the tabs, and then
still have the same, you have the option of navigating with the tab bar or just using the slide motion there. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that every single web app should be like this. It's just about considering the UX. Actually, the conclusion of the talk was that going from this mobile version, the previous one, to this new one, took 12 hours of coding. Mm-hmm. Sorry, 12 hours in total. 4 hours of coding and 8 to figure out the UX. And this was the whole message I wanted to get across, is that on the web, we're not spending enough time on the UX. When a company invests in mobile apps, they hire the best UX designers. But on the web, because anyone can build the front end, we often keep it for back-end developers, and that's not an offense, because I'm also a back-end developer.
Yeah, it's just we take it for granted that they can do it, but then the UX is like, I'm a UX, I do mobile UX, and then if I have to do your web app, I will just make it responsive, and that's it. I really like your app. I really like the way it is done. People, you should look at Learn JavaScript Online. You go on the mobile version, and you will see it's slick. I like it a lot. So you, there is something you mentioned that's gonna be funny right now. You didn't mention that, but I read that online, because that's easy to find. Now you're scary. Like you're scared. You're scared. You're like, what is he talking about? What is your nightmare as a developer?
So that's from Pescara in Italy. Yeah. So the theme of the conference was something that scares developers, and they ask every speaker to come up with their nightmare. And I provided my nightmare as a web developer, which is seeing the web that doesn't evolve. And it's a bit of a controversial topic because people will tell you there's a lot happening, which is true. But the thing I'm really worried about is on iOS. I don't know if many people know that, but there's only one browser on iOS. Which is just Safari. So even if you have Chrome, even if you have Firefox, even if you have, I don't know what other browsers they have, they're just Safari, or maybe even a subpar version of Safari. Yeah. Because Apple doesn't allow new browsers to ship their own browser engine. So if you have Chrome or Firefox, just the app shell, or I forgot the name. I think it's called Chrome.
Yeah, the Chrome.
The
Chromium
of the browser.
Yeah,
and then which is the tab bar, and the rest is just Safari. And it's not about having Chrome everywhere. That's also not something that I personally want to see. Yeah. It's just about having more competition. And it's not and some people would think, isn't this a monopoly? Technically speaking, it's not a monopoly, I think, because Apple only has 20% of market share. And
but it's just like we rule. It's our country. We decide how you can interact with it. Yeah, that's basically prevent the other companies to innovate against their system.
Yeah, and on mobile, because on mobile it's a big
talking about
share.
Apple and mobile and PWA.
I just have to say that Safari is an excellent browser. It's really fast. It's more about the politics behind it. Like a lot of times you open Safari and then a modal transition is just super fast, and that's super nice. Yeah.
But then what about the controversy, the latest controversy about Apple not being web friendly? Have you read about that, or you seen something about that lately?
I mean, what most of us don't like is that we don't have this predictability of what's going to happen on the web. They have this strategy with the iPads. Fine, we don't really need to know what the next iPad will be. But on the web, this is our career. We want to know if we should invest in the web or not. Yeah. Or if this feature will eventually land. So it would be nice if we can have more visibility into what's happening on WebKit.
Nice.
But yeah.
Interesting. So what is the main challenge for you today? What are the things that you like your challenge as a consultant, as a speaker, as a mentor? Is there any challenge that you face on daily basis that are interesting for people to know, and how do you go about them?
A lot, but I have to think. It's a really open question. So maybe I can give you an answer for every one of them. For talks, I always have the problem of figuring out what would be the right mix of beginner, intermediate, advanced content to please everyone in the audience. Also kind of assuming what are the prerequisites, because sometimes I go and speak about PWAs and I stopped doing introductory talks because I've done it for 2 years, and then it would be boring for the audience to keep on doing it. Yeah. But sometimes at a specific conference, I go there and I have people, this is the first time I hear about PWAs, which is absolutely fine. But then you also want this talk to be accessible for them without making it boring for people who have heard the introduction to PWAs. So that's always a challenge. For consulting, I only do web performance consulting, and I don't see many clients interested in that.
Oh yeah, and that's a hard one. Yeah, because it's what are you selling me? It's are you shipping a feature? Or no, I'm not shipping a feature. I'm just making your features faster.
Yeah, and I normally only have clients when shit hits the fan, when the performance becomes extremely slow is when the point they would reach out to someone, or when their SEO becomes really bad and then okay, we're in a state of emergency, can you help us? And that's one of the reasons why originally I didn't want to take up investors, because I spent 60% of my time working on the performance of the course, which is something a bit hard to sell to investors. Where are the new users? No, this is actually what's going to make them tell other people that they had a great experience. Yeah, which is just these small details and performance.
Damn, how do you sell that? how do you sell that the
To
performance
companies?
thing? Yeah, to
I
companies.
never do because I don't want to be in a spot where like I actually never approach companies because I don't know. I just wait for them to reach out, and then this is what I do. This is the impact I've had on companies, and then if you think you can benefit from performance, you can talk to me. And I always do like really short projects, like a few hours, few days, or maximum a week, because it depends on the complexity, of course.
Yeah. So, but then are you running like workshop on performances as well?
No,
Not really?
because it's
always like a specific thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But with your experience, you can just collect like many scenarios, like build an app that is so fast that it needs some performance help.
Yeah, well, when I do the PWA workshop, which you can think about just how to build a modern website in 2020, but also with Service Worker, 40% of the talk is about performance. It's always incorporated in everything modern, but it's not a workshop about performance, and it doesn't necessarily teach you how to find performance issues. But sometimes when I'm working with companies, like I do work with the developers and tell them, so there's this user timing API, you can use it if you suspect a certain function is slow, and then you see how much time it took, or how to use DevTools to figure out what's causing it. But there's no silver bullet, it's always really specific.
Okay, interesting.
Especially that performance, sometimes it's about load performance, sometimes it's about clicking on a button and then freezing the UI. Sometimes it's performance issue on mobile. It's a really big...
Okay.
Yeah.
So like performance engineer. So people, if you need a performance engineer, that guy can do the job. Yeah, it's amazing. I love this idea of performances, and I don't know if you met Torben.
Oh yeah, we keep talking about performance every time we grab coffee.
Yeah. So yeah, Torben.
He's a great guy. I've
good.
heard as well he's gonna be the next.
Yeah, he was. He's gonna be on the podcast at some point. Yeah, indeed. We discussed that. I wanted to know, especially because performance now.
Yeah.
Is now.
It's now. Yeah.
That's the name of the conference. Performance now.
I'm curious to hear what Torben has to say about performance.
Yeah. He has an extensive experience doing performance, and he taught in Denmark. He taught at engineering school about performance. So I was like, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to have. So what are next? What are the next step for the next point for you? You have a talk coming. You have what workshop? Can you share your next project or?
So I have an improvised live code tomorrow. That's something I'm trying completely new, where I arrive on the stage and I ask the audience what kind of apps they're building, and then take two ideas, merge them together, and live code an app almost from scratch. So I just have the webpack configuration.
How much time do you have?
30 minutes.
That's very good.
It's just the end goal
Create
of it.
React app, then we have an app, and then we go from there.
No. It's going to be mostly from scratch. I may use web components as well.
Okay.
And the end goal of it is to show native-like PWAs. So how do you build something that is native-like? Of course, I won't have time to show everything. And then I have PWA workshop with Frontiers. That's going to be in Utrecht. Then I have PWA workshop, but privately for a company, so that's not public. And then
I have a talk in January.
So the same thing, live code, but it won't be the same result because it's going to be based on what the audience say.
Okay.
And then
in 2020, big plans.
Launched a new React course.
Yeah.
I also have a course that was privately launched, not publicly launched, so I still have to launch that either in December or January. It's called Learn JavaScript Build, and it teaches you, with your knowledge that you acquired from the course, how to build projects. For example, like a calendar app. It also teaches you web components, lit element. I'm a huge fan of lit element.
Lit element, yeah.
Because it's almost as if it doesn't exist. It's not like learning React or Vue or Angular. You're just, if someone knows proper JavaScript, like the modern JavaScript, and then you spend 2 days teaching them web components, then you can teach them lit element in almost a few hours. And I think this is really nice. It's something I use in the course as well. The whole course doesn't use React or doesn't use Angular or Vue. It's just built. Originally, it was just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, like pure JavaScript. When I had reusability issues, this is when I turned to web components. And I honestly don't think I need more than that.
Interesting.
And lit element is only, I think in total 6 kilobytes, and that's gzip.
Yeah, you have companies like ING in Amsterdam using it. Yeah, pretty good. So we have a thing we do at Acflix when we ask our guests if they have someone that inspired them to do good, to be whoever they became over time. And then we ask them if they would be happy to host a podcast with the people that inspire them. Do you have such a person, or
I think I'm gonna disappoint you with my answer, but I had a lot of people that I were an inspiration for me.
We only pick one, unless Zara want to invite them all here. We have a big table as well.
Well, it was mostly never about idolizing someone, because I don't think you want to be someone else. It was more about taking qualities from someone and then just in a specific place. So, for example, one of them was Gary Vaynerchuk. I did like a lot of ideas, but not everything. So he's like amazingly great guy, but I just didn't want to be a copycat of him. So I only took the personal branding from him as a huge inspiration. Other things from other people, from like a lot of developers, but to remember the names now is a bit hard, because I think it's a day-to-day thing. I just see something like, wow, this is really amazing. This is a skill I want to have, and I'll try to see it.
It's just cherry pick.
Yeah. You're welcome. I made your life easier.
Get cherry pick. Gary? Gary, there is a guy here, that guy, who wants to have you on the podcast and talk about personal branding. So you're welcome.
Oh, that was easy.
That was easy, yeah. So I already did the job for like Zara, and then Gary will just
also from conference talks. I think like there's also now I remember there's someone I'm a huge fan of, which is I think I have to remember Adi Osmani for performance. I think, and public speaking. I think he was like for a majority of people a big inspiration.
See, you just made my life easier.
Yeah, I would be super. Actually, I can reach out to Adi and ask him, but then he would have to fly from California.
Amsterdam is an amazing city, right? It's only 10 hours flight, direct flight from here. So that's
well, if Adi's here, I would
Monday,
love to.
He will be here on Monday. Are you available on Monday? Because we can get him here, and then we do. That's gonna happen. So
but there's also a huge inspiration from the PWA side and performance. So like this, I should have mentioned this first, which is Alex Russell, and he's the guy who kind of popularized PWAs and worked on most of the features of
Alex
Russell, also from the Chrome team, he was a huge inspiration from the PWA side.
Okay,
especially. So I want to share this publicly, but when I first applied when I was first nominated for the GDE program, one of the questions I got was, what do you think about PWAs? And I had never heard of them. So I replied something completely off, like it's a responsive website. And
bam,
that
you're
was it.
Disqualified.
Exactly, because this is when I realized that I'm not really watching conferences, and there was a big shock, just like the one I had before, like the beginning of the podcast, where I'm really happy with what I know, and now I'm like I'm never happy with what I know.
It's a continuous learning process.
True, but I think nowadays, especially that we as developers say there's no full stack developer anymore, especially with Kubernetes and all of these things are just, I have to filter them. This is in my area of interest. This is like completely outside of my area of interest. But in this one, always trying to learn more, because every day there's something new.
Nice. Great. So we have answer. You answer most of my questions. But you know what? We're going to invite at least Gary. We already did. Osmi, what's the name again? Adi. We can that actually, if you plug it there, we just tell him like whenever you're in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
But man, you travel all over the world. So,
we take
at
this
what
setup.
moment? At which moment we can just have you, the two of you, like together?
Next Google I/O, I think.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But he'll probably be super busy, and
Yeah,
I don't really know.
But that's just 1 hour, and I know people here that will want to fly to California.
The most I can promise is just a picture.
Okay, so we're gonna make that happen. So we have it. I have I asked all my questions, and then I was really happy that you
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that you took time to sit with us and discuss a little bit. We always give you the last words. Is like any advice, anything you want to share with people. There's no pressure. Right? It's just something you've been doing, and then you think it's important for.
So I think it's hard to give like just generic recommendation, but if there's any questions I can help, please tweet me. I'm like active on Twitter. If I get questions that are specific, I love to answer them. Yeah. The only thing I can't answer is like super generic questions. Like, if like anyone is having thinks about doing something similar, or you want some kind of guidance, I would love to help on Twitter.
So you have the Twitter is one of the way to reach out to you.
It's at Joubran, Joubran, Jad, Jad.
Yeah. And any other medium like so there is Learn JavaScript Online. Obviously, once you're on Twitter, you have everything. You will be able to link
or the website
from there.
First name last name.io. So jadjoubran.io.
Very good, people. We have it. So. For people watching and listening, we had a new Hackflix podcast, and we had Jad Joubran with us today, and he flew from Amsterdam to Amsterdam.
I just took the elevator up.
Exactly, and so it's really someone that has done a lot, and hopefully his journey will inspire you to do good out there. Keep learning. Don't forget to share. Go and give those talks to meetups, conferences, and be like Jad.
No, not exactly.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.
Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot.